Assalamu alaikum. My dear students, how are you? I hope you are doing good by the grace of Almighty. Welcome to today's online class organized by National University. I am Shazdakta Asma, lecturer, Department of English, Government Tholaram College, Naranganj. Today, as usual, we're going to talk about your course 17th and 18th century non-fictional prose. So this course is for the students of honors third year. Today, I'm going to talk about specially Samuel Johnson's Life of Coley, and at the same time, I will also talk about Edison's essay, The Spectator's Account of Himself. Okay, before starting my class, I want to say that I hope you are enjoying this online classroom. And the purpose of this online classroom is to keep you focused in your study and at the same time to make you prepared for the examination which will be held after opening all the educational institutions. Okay, so please be attentive in the class and try to understand what I'm going to say. Okay, if you have any question, you can ask me in the comment box. Okay, so next, let's start our today's class. At first, I'm going to talk about Johnson's literary piece, Life of Coley. In my last class, I have talked about Life of Coley, but I think that I should talk about some more about this literary piece, which will help you or help you to understand this literary piece. For the student, in my today's class, I'm again going to talk about this Life of Coley a little bit. Later I will talk about Edison essay. Okay, so at first here I'm going to talk about how Johnson criticizes Coley's hyperbole. I mean Coley's use of hyperbole. So at first I'm going to talk about, I'm giving you a definition or some idea about hyperbole. What is hyperbole? Hyperbole from a Greek word meaning excess is a figure of speech that uses extreme exaggeration. I mean, the meaning of hyperbole itself is excess, and it is a Greek word, and this figure of it is a figure of speech, and it is used to show extreme exaggeration, to make point or show emphasis. I mean, when a writer wants to emphasis on a particular topic, at that moment he use hyperbole. Okay, so and in this kind of figure of speech, extreme exaggeration is used. It is added in literature to create an amusing effect in the text, and it is applied to accentuate the thoughts, ideas, and images presented in the literature, and it dramatizes the overall text. Okay, so what is the purpose of any author to behind the use of hyperbole? The purpose is to add or to create an amazing effect in the text, and it is applied to accentuate the thoughts, ideas, and images presented in the literature, and it dramatizes the overall text. Okay, so whenever our our author or any author wants to focus or emphasis on a particular thought or idea or images, or wants to present in a particular thought or idea or images in a noticeable way in front of the readers, at that moment author uses hyperbole. Okay, so and it dramatizes the overall text. That means it brings a kind of dramatic impact or effect in the overall text. So here Johnson criticizes Coley's use of hyperbole, and we'll talk about or we'll try to find out how does he criticize Colley's use of hyperbole. Okay, Johnson criticized the element of style, condemning his hyperboles as enormous and disgusting exaggeration. So our Johnson wants to say that Colley made disgusting or so many exaggeration, so much exaggeration in his use of hyperboles, or in his hyperboles he makes exaggeration. Okay, I mean exaggeration is the common feature of hyperbole, but Colley's um, Colley's exaggeration was more than the average kind of exaggeration which should be in a hyperbole. Okay, so his cites an example of Colley's poem in which he quotes that the poet requests his beloved to send him at least a sigh or two by every wind that comes this way. He will repay such and so many as shall themselves make winds to get to her. So here our Johnson provides an example of a hyperbole which is used by Colley. Our Johnson says that Colley goes to such an extent of exaggeration that in one of his poems he says that he requests his beloved to send him at least a sigh or two by every wind that comes this way. He will repay such and so many as shall themselves make winds to get to her. And in return, the poet will give his beloved so much shy, okay, that will make a kind of wind in the environment. So this is a kind of disgusting exaggeration according to our Johnson. So Johnson finds fault in the use of hyperbole, in Colley's use of hyperbole in this way. Okay, that Colley makes disgusting exaggeration in his use of hyperbole. Next, next again, Johnson continues to criticize Colley's use of hyperbole. Here he says that in another example, Johnson objects to the poet's complaint that his tears will create deluge to punish the lust of old. That means Colley writes in one of his poems that his tears will create flood, severe flood, to punish the lust of old, to punish the physical. You can understand the meaning of lust. So to punish the lust of old, lust is a kind of sin. So he says that our Colley says that his tears will create such severe flood, jealous flood, which will punish the lust of old. Okay, so Colley's use of imagination in hyperboles is often considered violent and unnatural. Colley's use of imagination in hyperboles is often considered violent. Again, I'm repeating this sentence in order to make you grasp the meaning of this sentence, that Colley thinks, our Johnson thinks that Colley's imagination in making or in creating hyperboles is often considered violent and unnatural. This is not natural. His use of hyperboles is not natural, and they are violent. This is the thought of our Johnson about Colley's use of hyperbole. Okay, so Johnson says that Colley's comparison between a beloved and the deceitful Fisher's light that attracts the light is unnatural. Our Johnson says that Colley's comparison between a beloved and the deceitful Fisher's light that attracts the light is unnatural. Okay, so here Colley compares the love his beloved with the deceitful Fisher's light, and our Johnson thinks that this is not a natural comparison. This is an unnatural comparison. In this way, Johnson finds fault in Colley's use of hyperbole. So we can clearly see that our Johnson finds fault in Colley's use of hyperbole. Okay. So next, here our Johnson our Johnson shows his attitude towards Colley's writing of odes. So you know, our Colley writes or translates the odes, different odes from Greek language. So here we will come to know about Johnson's attitude towards Colley's writing of odes. So what Johnson thinks about Colley's odes? He thinks that Colley has translated Pindaric odes from Greek language. I mean, Colley has translated some odes from Greek language. Pindar was the great Greek lyric poet. So Pindaric odes, I mean the odes of Pindar. And who was Pindar? Pindar was the great Greek lyric poet. And Colley has translated the odes of Pindar from Greek language into English language. According to Johnson, the beginning of the Olympic ode is above the original in elegance and the conclusion below it in strength. So according to Johnson, the beginning of the Olympic ode is above the original in elegance and the conclusion below it in strength. Okay. So the first part of his ode, the translated ode, it is up to mark and it is good or elegant than the original ode, the original Greek ode, which was written by Pindar. But the conclusion part does not have that kind of strength which Pindar's ode has. Okay, so the first part of the translated ode by Colley is good, it is elegant, but the last part it is not good, it does not have good strength. Okay, next, Johnson criticizes Colley's selection of diction when he translates the odes. He thinks Colley uses feeble diction in the description of some parts of the odes, particularly which talk about morality. So Johnson criticizes Colley's selection of diction. He thinks that the diction is feeble, weak, not strong. Okay, especially in the parts where our Colley talks about morality. So Colley's language here, Johnson criticizes the language of Colley, which he uses in the translated odes. He thinks that this diction or this language are not strong, especially in the part where Colley talks about morality. Okay, next, our Johnson says he also criticizes that Colley concludes the odes with lines which do not befit the rest of the poems. Okay, so in our Johnson is repeatedly criticizing the concluding part of Colley's translated odes. He thinks that the concluding part of Colley's translated odes are not up to mark. At first, okay, and it does not fit or does not match. The concluding part of his odes does not match with the rest of the poem. This is the thought of our Johnson. So next, okay, so here we conclude our discussion about Life of Colley by Samuel Johnson. I hope that you get information. Enough information about Life of Colley, and I also suggest you to go through the text carefully in order to learn more about Life of Colley by Samuel Johnson. And if you prepare the answer of the question for examination for in this way, for example, you can prepare answer on the question Johnson's attitude. What was Johnson's attitudes, or what are Johnson's attitudes towards Colley as odd? Okay, or call this writing of ors. If you prepare answer based on this kind of question, you will be able to answer them in the examination. Okay, so next now we are going to discuss about a new text. Okay, so the text is the essays of Edison and Steele. Okay, Edison and Steele jointly jointly write down some essays, and here in this text you will or we will talk about those texts. Okay, now at first I'm going to talk about Edison, and I will talk about one of Edison's essay in today's lesson, in today's class. In my next class, I will talk about the rest of the essays. So in order to make you grasp the essays of both Edison and Steele, I will talk about summary, so that you can understand the whole essay. Okay, and these essays are really interesting. It is kind of biography. These essays are kind of biography. I mean, okay, so these essays are kind of the life of a human being, and we will learn about these essays and these two writers, Edison and Steele, in details in today's class and also in the next class. So today at first I'm going to talk about Edison. Okay, so Edison was born on May 1, 1672. So he belongs to 17th century. Okay, and where did he born? He was born in Millstone, Wiltshire, England. Okay, and the date of his death is June 17th, 1719. Okay, and he died in London, England. Alma mater means his educational institution. He is from Oxford University. That means he studied at Oxford University. Okay, so here Edison belongs to new classical age of literature. New classical age of literature. New classical age, new classical period is the period in English literature. You know, English, the English literature has been divided into different periods, several periods, in order to study different literary pieces of English literature properly. In order to understand the literary pieces of English literature, the age of English literature, or the world of English literature, has been divided into different periods. Okay, so new classical period is one of the periods, and Edison belongs to this period, which is also termed as Augustan age. Okay, you have already learned about these ages in your second year syllabus, history of English literature. Here I'm not going to talk about in details, but okay, this is the Augustan. Okay, I'm just giving you some information about the age. The Augustan age in ancient Rome has seen remarkable progress in art, literature, science, and philosophy. Likewise, the scholars of the 18th century in England wanted their age to make great progress in all fields of learning and art. However, it is doubtful that they achieved that kind of greatness. Other name for this age is the age of prose and reason. So Rome, ancient Rome. Rome is the name of a city in Italy. You know that. So, and Rome was once a city or a center of art and culture in Europe. Okay, so there was a period named Augustan age in ancient Rome, and this age, the Augustan age in the literature of ancient Rome, or in the art world of ancient Rome, has seen remarkable progress in art, literature, science, and philosophy. So there was remarkable progress, remarkable development in art, literature, science, and philosophy, where in ancient Rome. Okay. Likewise, the scholars of the 18th century in England the scholars of 18th century in England. Rome is in Italy, but now we are talking about in England. So during the 18th century in England, the artists, the scholars, okay, they wanted to make remarkable progress like the ancient Roman artists in all fields of learning and art, in all fields of knowledge during the 18th century. So although the scholars of England during the 18th century, they thought that they have achieved that kind of progress like the ancient Roman in every sectors of knowledge, okay, but it is not proved. It is not proved that the scholars during the 18th century in England have achieved progress in all fields of art, okay. So however, it is doubtful that they achieved that kind of greatness. Other name for this age is the age of prose and region, okay. Other name for this age is the age of prose and region, okay. So you are here studying 17th and 18th century prose, okay. So you can understand that the prose during this period was remarkable, okay. Next, about the spectator. What is a spectator? What is the spectator? Okay, here we will talk about this. This is the name of a periodical. Periodical, how would I explain? How will I explain it to you? It's kind of periodical, it's kind of magazine, okay, which had been published after a certain period of time, not regularly, but after a certain period of time. For example, maybe after 15 days or after 13 days. This is a periodical which is preceded by Tatler. There was the name of a periodical, Tatler, before the Spectator, and followed by the Guardian. So after the Spectator, there was another periodical which name is the Guardian, okay. Edison printed his famous essays, for which he is significant in the world of English literature, in this periodical. So both Edison and Steele, not only Edison, both Edison and Steele have printed their famous essays, for which they are significant in the world of English literature, in this periodical, okay. For this reason, this periodical is so important in English literature, in the world of English literature, because some of the famous essays were published in this periodical. This periodical reflects his period of writing, and also Steele and other writers also contributed in these periodicals. Both Edison and Steele co-edited these essays. This periodical reflects his period of writing. The period of Edison, okay. This periodical reflects the period of Edison and also Steele and other writers. So not only Edison and Steele, but other writers also contributed in this periodical, okay, and thus represents their age by their essays, and at the same time contributed in the development of prose in English literature. Both Edison and Steele co-edited these essays. Co-edited. They have not written these essays jointly, but they jointly edited these essays. Okay. So aim of Edison behind writing his essay. What were the aims of Edison behind writing this essay? We will learn about this in this part of our lesson. To reform society. One of the aims of Edison behind writing his essays was to reform society. Next, to reform the manners of his readers. He wanted to reform the manners, the behaviors of his readers. Okay. Next, to circulate information, but they did not intend to circulate any political news. Our I mean, our what our Edison wanted to circulate information, but they did not intend to circulate any political news. So both Edison and Steele wanted to circulate information on different topics, but they did not wanted to circulate any political news in this periodical. Okay, to give readers advice and knowledge which would help them to be better human beings. So our both Edison and Steele wanted to give readers advice and knowledge which would help them to be better human beings. Their essays, both by these essays, both Edison and Steele wanted to give readers information, advice, suggestion, knowledge, whatever you say, about different topics so that they can be better human being. That was the purpose of this periodical. Because if you try to uplift the mind, the thought of a human being, then they will later contribute to reform, to develop the society, okay, and ultimately to develop a state or a country or a nation. So at first you have to develop, or at first human beings should be developed. He tried to do the above mentioned list in a lively and humorous way, and it was not, their essays are not monotonous, they are not boring. They intend to reform the society, they intend to reform the manners, behaviors of human beings, but their essays are not boring or monotonous, they are lively and they are humorous. Okay, so next we are going to know about one of the essays of Edison today. In my today's class, I will just talk about only one essay. In my next class, I will talk about the rest of the essays included in your syllabus. Okay. So today, I'm going to talk about the spectator's account of himself, or Mr. Spectator. Basically, in this essay, Edison represents a person which he thinks the spectator, or Mr. Spectator. Okay, this essay is a kind of biography about a person, and I'm not going to talk about the essay in details, but I will just give you a summary of this essay. Okay, the spectator's account of himself, or Mr. Spectator. Try to memorize the name or the title of the essay. Okay, and I will suggest you to read the essay in details or to read the text. But for your better understanding, or for the limitation of time, I'm just going to talk about summary. I hope that you will understand, or you will get important information, or the basic information about the essay in this summary. In this essay, the author talks about his life. So this is a kind of biography, autobiography of Edison. Okay, so autobiography, you know the difference between autobiography and biography. Autobiography is when a person writes down the life story of himself, and biography is when a person, or when an author writes down the life story of another person, not his life story, but the life story of another person. That is called biography. Okay, so the author talks about his life. The aim of presenting some particulars of his life is to satisfy the curiosity of the readers. He also thinks that readers can understand the writings of a writer better if they know certain details about the author. This is not only the thought of Edison, this is also my thought, that if you know about the life story, certain details of the life story of an author, it will help you, or it will help any reader to understand the writings of that author. Okay, so here Edison directly mentions that the aim of writing this essay is to provide certain details of his life story in front of the readers, so that the readers can understand him, and at the same time the readers can understand his writings. Okay. Next, the spectator was born in an estate which he inherited from his father, and this estate belongs to his forefathers, and they used to live here for ages. This estate has not been changed for ages. So here is the description of the house, or of, which was an estate where he was born, and our author wants to say that this estate was his forefathers, and he inherited, and his father, his grandfather, his great grandfather, I mean his forefathers used to live in this estate for ages. Okay. Next, his mother once dreamed that he would be a man of importance, or particularly a judge. So his mother wanted him to be a judge. The reason behind this was his family was dealing with a legal case at that moment. His serious temperament or behavior was also suitable to be a judge. So for two reasons, his mother wanted him to be a judge. One is his family was dealing with some legal cases, okay, during that moment, some cases related to court or trial at that moment. And secondly, the author was serious, reserved in behavior or in temperament. For this reason, his mother or his family members thought that this behavior would be suited for the profession of a judge. Okay. Next, he had been reserved at school, and his school teacher had been pleased with him and said that he possessed solid talent. So from his childhood, he was a talented person. Okay, here our author wants to provide us this information that from his childhood, he was a talented person, and his teacher admired him or praised him for his talent. At university, he was different from other students for his silence or serious behavior, which he never had broken. So at university, he was different, distinguished from his peers, classmates, or other students at the university, because he was serious. He was reserved in his behavior. Okay, for this reason, he was different from other students. At university, he worked hard and was a diligent student. He was a hardworking student, and he read so many books that there was hardly any book with which he was not familiar. So during his university life, he was a hardworking student, and he read so many books that there was hardly any book left with which he did not read or with which he was not familiar. Okay. After the death of his father, he left his university to travel Europe. So when his father died, he left his university, he left his study. Why? What was the purpose behind this decision? Because he wanted to travel Europe. He had a never satisfied thirst for knowledge, and this took him to travel all the countries of Europe. He had a never satisfied thirst for knowledge, and for this reason, he thought that traveling could satisfy his knowledge, his thirst for knowledge, and he tried to travel all the countries of Europe. He had a curiosity for the antiquities of Egypt, and to satisfy his curiosity, he traveled to Cairo to have a good look at the pyramids. So Cairo is the capital city of Egypt, and you know, pyramids are the antiquities situated in or built up in Egypt. You all know that. So he had a curiosity about the antiquities. Antiquities means about the old mansion, old building, ancient building, or ancient sculpture or ancient structure. And for this reason, he thought of visiting Egypt. So pyramids is still, even till now, pyramid is one of the attraction for tourists, which is situated in Egypt. So our Edison or the author traveled to Cairo in order to have a look, or in order to visit pyramid. In London, he used to visit public places a lot. He's a reserved person. He was a reserved person. The author was a reserved person, but he used to visit public places a lot. Okay, he did not have much friends, but he visited all the coffee shops and take note of what was happening there. Although he was a reserved person, he was not used to talk. He was not used to talk a lot, but he liked to visit public places, visiting coffee shops, and take note. That means he observed, he observed or monitored what was happening in those public places. He was an observer. Okay. He visited the famous theatres of London, where he was treated as merchant by other people. Other people thought that he was a businessman, he was a merchant, okay? And where in the famous theatres of London, he would mix with other people. He would talk with, mix with other people and observe them closely. But he would never open his lips except his own club. So here we can see that the author used to visit different theaters of London, where people thought that he was a merchant, and he used to mix with people. He used to not talk, but mix with people. But he did not talk about himself in those theaters or in those parties, but he closely observed the manners, behaviors of the people who used to visit the theaters. Okay, but he would only talk in his own club. He always played the role of observer, was a good observer, and used to monitor the behavior of other people. Why? He used to observe the behavior of other people. Why? Because he carefully noticed the absurdities in the behavior of other people. By observing other people's behavior, he was able to find out the mistakes in other people's behavior. He was always neutral in his attitude towards the political parties. Why did he observe the behavior of other people? Because in this way, he was able to find out the absurdities or the mistakes in the behavior of other people. But he was always neutral or indifferent to political views or to political parties. He was a reserved man and could not open his mind to other people. For this reason, he started to write down his thoughts and experiences on papers. Okay, as he was a reserved person, he was not habituated to talk much. He was not habituated to open his mouth. He was a good observer, a silent observer. So he thought that writing down all his observation and his thoughts, ideas would be a better way to communicate with people, and he did that. Okay, he wrote down all his thoughts, all his observations about the behavior of people or about society, for which we are now fortunate to know about them. So my dear students, this was the summary of Edison's essay, The Spectator's Account of Himself, or Mr. Spectator. Today I have talked about the life of Cowley, and also I have talked about Edison, the writer, the author, and I have talked about The Spectator, which was a periodical in which both Edison and Steele have published their essays. And I have also talked about one of the essays of Edison, and the title of the essay is The Spectator's Account of Himself, or Mr. Spectator. I hope you have enjoyed my today's class and you are benefited by the information which I have tried to provide you. Just to focus on your study, I will suggest this, that focus on your study and try to get information from our classes as much as possible, because it will be helpful for you to understand the text and to get preparation, to take preparation for the examination. Today Um, Today I'm going to conclude my class. Um, I hope that you will take care of yourself, and I will meet you in my next class. Till then, take care. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.